You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop. For more about this show and my other show Enthusiasts, plus to get the latest interviews, K-pop news, album reviews, and so much more, subscribe to the show's free newsletter at 17caratkpop.substack.com. Enjoy the show! Hi everybody! Welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. So I released my Best New Music of May episode, and I've released separate episodes for other contenders, parts of the top 20 list, a standalone episode for Les Seraphim, for N-Hyphen, now the final standalone episode for my top 20, JOOHONEY, my MONSTA X bias, back with lights. Which I do want to recap track by track first. Then we can talk about some of his earlier works, but I really do want to focus on lights, as does he, I'm sure, because it really is he sees the light at the end of the tunnel moment for him personally. And you can sense that in music, performances, etc. Exciting new energy from him. So let's talk about it. First things first, I want to recap what you missed if you didn't check out his series of YouTube videos that take you behind the scenes of making this album in the videos. In the YouTube series, JOOHONEY reveals the concept the seed was planted for it about a year ago when he was talking to collaborator Brian Koo about the nature of seeing the light in those types of metaphors. He envisioned making this album kind of feel like a movie scene, so he wanted to start out with the hype, the faster stuff. That's why he starts with the track, Hype Energy. He wanted the movie trailer, drawing audiences in, experience first, to really get people on the edge of their seat, which I thought was smart. Some of the songs that made the final cut are actually smashed together separate songs. So songs that he originally had on the track list separate were mashed into one song. But still, over 30 unreleased songs for this are just not released yet. But he's worked on tons of music. I would not be surprised if he does a repackage or otherwise a quicker than expected comeback with the other stuff. The song Evolution started out without really lyrics, just kind of na-na-na, what he calls alien noises, like sounds of a literal alien, in place of lyrics because it was just a rough guide song. But they really worked it into a really new work of art. They molded that mess into a beautiful story and wrote on it and wrote very passionately about it's the journey, not the destination. He made Don't Worry Be Happy before 2017. Yeah, that long ago, but maybe even before then. But 2017 is when he recalls playing that song for Minhyuk during an unrelated recording session for the group. It was interesting because most K-pop stars do not admit this, but he said he doesn't really like the concept of a fan song, like a fan-dedicated song. Like, just give your all to every song, and then it might become a fan favorite, without you intentionally labeling it as such and making it live up to that feel, that expectation. It's an interesting outlook, and he does have a point. I personally find fan songs usually super sweet, even if they're corny, but I get this perspective too. Let fans decide which account is the one that makes them feel the most connected to you. But he said if he has to pick one to call a fan song, he would pick Don't Worry Be Happy. And he said, quote, I want this to be an album that makes you feel like you get another life. Given a new life somehow. You feel alive when listening to it, unquote. Which is a really cool way to talk about getting back up and getting stronger from what didn't kill you. He said this crumping dance, his word not mine, was meant to be monster-like, like a throwback to Walking Like Zombie maybe. He wanted it to look, in the choreo, like he was literally breaking out of his shell, like a bird or a dinosaur or something. He also put his all into the picturesque highlight medley video, which took 18 hours to film. He drew inspiration for this album from Referenced Your Name, a movie about people bound by red string, has to do with the Tale of the Red String, Japanese story about fates being connected. You can try to pull the strings taut or loose, or they get tangled. Lots of string metaphors about connections, frayed threads or whatever, but at the end of the day, the strings still bind you. So that connection, again, that sense of an endless journey, so you enjoy it rather than be daunted by it, because the destination doesn't matter as much anyway. That theme was the core of this album. And his life philosophy now, it seems, just period. He said he hopes this album shows improved patience and experience, not necessarily improved maturity. which I found another interesting reframing of expectations. With this release, he said he doesn't really care if you say he's become more grown and mature, but he has grown more patient and earned experience, which is what really matters. And as you'll see, in these songs he was intentional about kind of speaking to his inner child and encouraging listeners to speak to their own. Reconnect with that part of you now as a more healed person. One more fun fact, he worked with the choreographer who was also behind some MONSTA X numbers like X Phenomenon and Who Do You Love? It starts off with Hype Energy, the name of the song and the substance you'll get when you start out. Going back to his roots, which makes this trajectory really cool, because the album starts with a traditional Korean instrument, it's got a hip-hop beat that kicks in. He said he wanted to bring to mind his earliest performance solo, Yes Sir. The No Mercy days, the trainee days, his Yes Sir solo, that energy he wanted to rechannel into this. So he gets back to his roots in terms of geography and career. Then, as the album progresses, you see he kind of mellows out a bit relatively. It's a little less hype over time. He's gotten calmer, a little less angst-ridden, but still energetic in his own, more content way. He also, right out the gate, gets your attention and proves this album is going to be a roller coaster. It is very genre-bending. It is just all over the place. You don't know where it'll swerve next. It zigs when you thought it would zag, or vice versa, whatever phrase you want to use, but it really is surprising. It starts out like one song and then it turns into another. So this one starts out with drumming and, like I said, the traditional instrument, but then the hip-hop beat takes over. Same surprise inside effect in Freedom, the title track that starts out like a beautiful piano ballad and has other ballad-like piano-driven parts, and then the bass-rooted, deeper, darker tone. Voice is a song we heard a preview of on tour, on MONSTA X's No Limit tour. Finally, we get to hear a studio cut, which pairs just a pained, guitar-backed delivery with trap beats. He also includes the "I want to hear your voice" phrase, which just gave me big Pentagon Basquiat or TXT Dear Sputnik energy. That sound, that "I want to hear your voice" sound, sample, tone, whatever you want to call it, I feel like that piece has been applied to a lot of K-pop work. I dig it, it's a curious recurrence. Evolution lives up to its name, a gentle-voiced intro, then the auto-tune kicks in with the bass, the hip-hop, R&B style. The choruses start out kind of pop-punk, then suddenly turn to focus on clapping. I love the ending with the defiant, "I'm done," after he was all echoey and soft-voiced, but then he comes back with that. The bite is always back after a sweet moment, a whisper. Monologue took on a jazzy direction to be very new for him, although it is still a rap song too. He worked with G-Soul and sings about all this uncertainty he was plagued by pre-debut. Interesting choice to make that the main collab, as he sings about not feeling like he can fully, confidently command the stage on his own yet, so he shares the mic with G-Soul. Then there is Don't Worry Be Happy, which is so feel-good and has cool layered guitars, more hush talking than singing in some points, but then back to singing, and it's super touching because in Smokey, his previous release, a very moving song was that title track because he sang with a kid's choir behind him. You can practically see him crouch down as you listen to the song, and he's talking to his younger self, saying, "Don't be scared, you'll make it out the other side," saying what he wished someone had told him when he was younger. Now with this album, on Don't Worry Be Happy, he's the adult, and he's backed by a choir of voices again, but adult voices. So now he's back in the mentality of, I can face the day. I've revisited past issues, and now I feel like a new person. Reborn in the adult world of autonomy, no longer scares me, I'm ready for it. He gave himself a pep talk in the past, basically. And now he can focus on the future confidently, and trust that everything really will be okay. So it's a very moving thread between those two songs. There's quite a juxtaposition in the Freedom video because he goes from locked up in a dark room to all white outfit, bright blue skies. He makes his breaking out of his shell, emerging a new self, pretty perfectly visualized. An apt visual representation. So one big overall message throughout these songs' lyrics is about trusting that things will be okay and that you've made it through hell, so keep going. You've got this. The worst is behind you. But this is also a pep talk to other people too, making this album a perfect example of how taking care of yourself and your own inner struggles is not selfish. It's actually essential. because then you can move on to apply what you've learned in your own healing process to help other people. Because hurt people. They don't know how to heal. So if you heal, you will extend that knowledge on others that you interact with. And you won't just be lashing out because you never dealt with your own trauma. That's how I interpret this album, as him showing the fruits of that labor, the emotional work being worth it, because then you can spread the light. Which is why I think he very intentionally made it lights plural as the title. Hype energy is when he sings about, tell me about your failure. Stop copying me, do your thing, mess up, I'll do my thing. He also says, I respect the seniors who are ahead of me. I express respect to my juniors. Enemy with a life full of ups and downs. To children, I'm battery, I'm hype energy. So he's overtly trying to help boost the morale of those who come after him. My favorite lyrics from Freedom include, unraveling the laws that held me down. My steps become lighter. I started from the bottom, in the cage that confined me. In the burning rage, beyond the beige of hope, various colors illuminate my own stage. Even your pain and the unbearable moments of suffering are swept away by the flowing wind. This too shall pass, all things are temporary, and past the struggle, you will see the colors that light up your unique stage, which is kind of represented by the video, because when he's in the black room, he is glow in the dark with his paint. So he found a way to find his own light, even amidst pitch darkness. Voice includes him saying, I want to hear your voice, and everybody let's fight. He also says my flow is tight, and whenever he talks about a flow, I know that's a thing rappers say a lot, but it always makes me think of his MONSTA X song, Flow, one of MONSTA X's best songs ever, if you ask me, and that touching meaning to him he may be nodding back to here. And I love that the lyrics include, I got the key, you got the key, and we got the key, and then we are the keys. Again, it's spreading the new confidence, spreading the new self-love ability, empowering others instead of just yourself. That, to me, is ultimately what makes this album so meaningful and special. Not just that it's great to see him in a better place mentally than he once was, but that he wants to spread that good feeling, help other people through their darkest hours. And he's all ears. On Evolution he sings, I can't wait to hear some more. Words that give me hope. I want to fly around with you. Crawling is better than nothing. I know I'm still evolving. I couldn't take my foot off my fear. The coward who left me and ran away, I'm done. I think he's personifying his fear as the coward, like a separate being who he had to scare off or realize he needs to cut ties with. Maybe that was the whispery, echoey voice before he said, I'm done. That was his fear, final gasp before he kicked it to the curb. Monologue is definitely one of the darker songs, but he ends up saying, I love you to himself by the end. So he gives himself permission to feel like everything's awful, knowing that he will feel better someday. It's a good self-talk, and it's his way of saying he will find the ability to find joy in the future through defining his present moment instead of letting other people keep controlling it. The future can look brighter if he does his own thing, doesn't take other people's advice for how to get there. Quote, I don't need a key word that defines me. What's with my blueprint? Throw it away. Make a fire. I'm so tired of the word denial. That to me seems like one of his more clear disses to the idol training system. MONSTA X have talked about before their words, hell broadcasting with no mercy and stuff. Reality shows are so brutal to everyone. They haven't as often talked specifically about gripes with the industry itself after you make it big. I don't know, it just stuck out to me that he said, I don't need a key word to define me, because a key part of K-pop group comebacks is, here's the key word for this era, beast mode or flower boy or something like that. He's like, I'm not gonna market myself that way this time. That did not bring me joy. My favorite parts of the Don't Worry Be Happy lyrics. I was too young, it was too frozen. Days that were too far away are painful. I walked slowly, it was too cold, I cried too much. When I was too scared, I walked slowly. The bright tomorrow of our love will come again. So don't worry, be happy is his message after all the trials and tribulations. It's interesting then to look back at MIXTAPE PSYCHE, where he had a lot more angst clearly, opened up about dealing with anxiety, He called himself a monster in Psyche. That's interesting that a lyric in Psyche is I'm a monster, and now he said he intentionally did choreo that was monster-like. Like he's embracing it now. He said life is like hiking on Psyche, that it's just an endless road, which he also kind of says, he alludes to that on Lights, but now in a positive. That's not daunting, that's exciting. An endless journey, life is. Also another possible MONSTA X song shadow he made in Psyche because he said, "'Cause I slay." This, in hindsight, is really interesting. He sings about and raps about his eyes. Looking into his eyes gives away his true feelings. So in Psyche, quote, "You can see through my face, the prideful eyes. They're all congested and very scared. Dancing in the flashing lights. This is a random game, dice. I close my eyes, they tied me up, I close my eyes, saying I would rather get better from a deep sleep," unquote. So he wants to block out the world. He feels like he's being manipulated, can't see clearly. The word congested is interesting given the title track of that era, Smokey. And like he did on Psyche, he sings about climbing to the summit. He's really trying to get to the mountain peak mentally. He says in Dia, short for diamond, quote, "I have to wash my eyes and look up." He wants to see clearly the light, but he couldn't back then. He also says on Dia, he talks about the issue with being expected to be perfect in so many ways. Quote, "If you rap well, your gestures aren't great. If your gesture's not good, you can't rap," unquote. Which would also explain why he was ready to just do more of a free-form looking style in every meaning of the word, outfits, choreo, etc. with this era. Like, who cares? I can't meet those expectations of checking off every box. Just brutally dark context in the song Smokey, but really powerful. It's really therapeutic if you're in that place alongside him. I personally loved that album because I deal with chronic anxiety, as I've talked about before on the show, and this was a very relatable song for those days when it's like, oh my gosh, everything is scary, and I don't know why or how to calm down. He says, "I don't even know if my smile is happy," which is a really interesting, apt way to put it. Like, sometimes the bad feeling is not necessarily despair, it's confusion. Like, why am I apathetic or lost mentally? He also sings about wanting to desperately reconnect with that inner child, which he's finally able to on Lights. That video ends with him walking towards a sky that's getting clearer and clearer, and the final lyric was "I'll wait for you there." And now, it's like he was waiting for himself in that clearing. He references his eyes again on Dark and Cloudy. Quote, "The eyes of the dark past are full of malice. Confronting a biased company, containing the truth, chasing the passion. I've been chasing so much, I've reached the bottom of my passion. I want to get up. These people can never feel who I am. This cramped rule, I'm in the trap, I'm not your jewelry, I'm always trapped in the dark. But in this dark and humid place, I'm a burning star again," unquote. So that optimistic assessment, it is creeping in, kind of hidden there, his resolve to try to mentally turn things around and point out what's burning him down and change his life to not please who doesn't deserve to be pleased, not sacrificing his personal happiness anymore. His ability to try to start doing that starts to show itself in that song, but it really doesn't fully grow until this new album. But you do see that flicker of light in him there. He comments on kind of Nepo babies, basically, and people who were given a silver spoon, and how it's not fair who's destined for good fortune and who isn't on King. Some direct quotes, "These people are indifferent to right and wrong. The madness caused by the frightened ones. I live in a fearful dream with a well-made expression. Crumbles, and everyone covets the king's position. Only the royal veins take the throne. They're so mad, as if they were possessed. Among those trapped, I am also. Loyalists' recognition is comforting. No irrefutable comments required. Every person's strength is born. With my broken wings, I'll go without fear. Let's go. I don't know, just do yourself, just do myself. I'm making the king culture. Go up further and shout," unquote. See, again, he's saying go up further. He has an inherent optimistic streak in him that is kind of buried still, and he is still on the rising action part of his story. The climax comes with lights, and he sees the light at the top of the mountain. still in the rising action, inner conflict, getting provoked, stirring up all these tricky feelings, sad feelings, negative feelings in this climbing up the mountain phase of the story. He talks about craving more success and more chances to prove himself, but also says he doesn't regret his days in his New Boys crew because that made him who he is today, put him on this path. He continues to just show so much desire, burning desire to show his true self to the world that he knows is in there and ready to shine if only people would let it. That's ultimately what Mixtape Psyche is to me. In hindsight, it's an assessment of a state of anger that he wants to shake off because he knows if people stop putting unfair, unrealistic burdens, expectations on him, if they let him be himself, if they let his creativity be fostered, not suppressed, that he can really thrive. He knows he can thrive, and when people stop him, that's worse than if he thought he couldn't do it. Basically, it's his anger packaged into an album. Resentment towards the systems in place to stifle his creativity, because he really wants to prove to them and show them what he's got that they don't believe in. Then on Lights, he not only is showing you, but he gets rid of the emotional baggage from Mixtape Psyche of trying to throw off expectations and failing. But he gets rid of all that and feels freer to just be himself, let it go. So this song, Wingsuit, really summarizes that. As he says, quote, "I need to be desperate. I'm interested in a world living like a leech. I'm a withered flower, must bloom. The famous friends who rose with luck, you're floating in the bubble, all bluff." Unquote. So overall, Lights impressed me because it's very all over the place genre and style-wise, but it has that continuous narrative core of self-exploration, self-discovery, self-actualization. He really just comes into his own and then sings about, whoa, in hindsight that was way dark, how'd I get through it? I don't know, but I gotta reassess, clarify how I did it so I can tell others how they can do it. So he let out his anger at the world in Mixtape Psyche. Now, post-mental health hiatus, he brought us Lights and freedom. I figured out how to never deal with what caused so much resentment in my life in that era ever again. I found ways to ward it off and really put my best foot forward and bask at the top of this mountain, not worrying about getting downhill, because it's the journey, not the destination. So I don't have to worry about the end point. I'm just going to enjoy being up on the mountain as myself. But another great thing about this pair of albums is that this is all just my interpretation, how I personalize and resonate with his message. Everyone could take away a different meaning. Certain lyrics jump out to you, parts of the music video stick in your head. We all have such an interesting, unique experience watching and listening to music. So it's so cool how different interpretations can be. So this is just mine. Feel free to share with me what yours are. But thank you, JOOHONEY. What a beautiful, vulnerable, special work of art you've made and have before. So excited and invested in going on this nerve-wracking journey with you. I'm right there with you. Anxiety is a monster, but it can be controlled, and thank you for giving some advice for that. I hope you love this album too and find it comforting, and learn to better appreciate JOOHONEY's work through this episode. Thank you all for tuning in today. I'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye, everybody.